Bookish Babes, and welcome to the 12 Days of Vlogmas, Day 5. For those who don't know me, my name's Rainy Barton. I teach elementary music, middle school musical theater, and I like to read lots of books. Mainly thriller and horror, but I read all types of genres. So if you're interested in hearing about all different types of books, please like and subscribe down below so that it can really help my channel grow. In today's video, we are going to be doing a Buzzword challenge book recommendations. So if you don't know Kayla from Books and Lala, she's like my favorite YouTuber ever. Every year she does a Buzzword challenge where she either picks a word for each month or a theme for each month, and you have to try and find a book or read multiple books that fits that word or that theme. And so she just announced this year's Buzzword challenge words. And so I'm going to link to her video underneath here and the graphics so that in case you want to join in on that, you can go watch that video and do it. But I figured I would share my TBR for what I'm going to read for her Buzzword challenge. And then I'm going to give like 4 to 5 other recommendations that you could read for each of these if you are really struggling with coming up with ideas. And so I thought that would be a fun video to do. So if you're excited to do that, then please stay tuned. And we are just going to go January through December and see what books I'm reading and what you could be reading alongside me for the Buzzword challenge. In January, the words are life and death. So you could either read a book with life in the title or death in the title. And I chose The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab because this was supposed to be a 5-star prediction for 2022. However, I did not get to it, so I figure 2023 is the year that I finally read this bad boy. And if you don't know what this one is about by now, it's basically about a girl named Adeline in 1714 that basically makes a deal with the devil to like live forever. But if she lives forever, the one caveat is that anytime she meets somebody, as soon as they turn away from her, they forget who she is. And so no one ever remembers her until one day, like 200 years later, someone does remember her. Until then it's like, well, how do they remember her? Like, what's going on? So I'm very excited to hopefully finally get to this, but we'll see. Some other recommendations that you could read that have life in the title is The Love of My Life by Rosie Walsh. I've never actually read this, but I've heard that it's really great. This one is about a girl named Emma. She loves her husband Leo and their young daughter Ruby. She'd do anything for them, but everything she's said about herself is a lie. And she might have gotten away for it if it wasn't her husband's job. He's an obituary writer. She's a marine biologist. When she suffers a serious illness, he copes by doing what he knows best, researching and writing, but this time about his wife's life. But as he starts to unravel the truth, he discovers the woman he loves doesn't exist. Even her name isn't real. When the very darkest moments of her life finally emerge, she must somehow prove to Leo she really is the woman he always thought she was, but first she has to tell him about the other love of her life. So I've been wanting to read this for a while, so maybe I'll get to more than one book, but I'm only promising for Addie LaRue. You could also read Love That Story by Jonathan Van Ness, Observations from a Gorgeously Queer Life. I love Jonathan Van Ness. If you don't know who he is, he's part of the Fab Five from Queer Eye, and I'm really excited to finally get to his memoir because he reads it himself, and that could not be any better. I just love him so much. And then if you want a couple with death in the title, you could read The Death of Miss Westaway. I have only read half of this, and then I soft DNF'd it. But it wasn't because I didn't want to read it. It was a timing thing. But this one, I believe, is just about a girl named Harriet who receives a mysterious letter getting a substantial inheritance from her grandmother, but her grandparents have been dead for more than 20 years, so she doesn't understand, but she decides she's going to go there anyway and try and figure out if she can still claim the money. And then she gets stuck within this weird family situation and has to like get out alive, basically. So this one could be a fun time. You could also read The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which I'm actually reading in my besties book club for March, I believe. And I'm pretty sure it says Evelyn Hardcastle is killed at this party, but one of the guests is summoned to Blackheath for the party and wants to solve her murder, but the day repeats over and over again every time until he solves this murder. So that one could be a potential fun one. And the one that I have read is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Kweke Emezi. I gave it 5 stars. It's this beautiful tragic romance about a woman that has to learn how to love again after the love of her life dies and gets into an interesting relationship. That's all I'm going to say because I can't ruin it from there. But it was a 5-star and it was excellent. Then let's get into February, where the theme is verbs. And so I had a fun time with this. I'm basically doing the one that Kayla suggested because that was what I was going to read already. And it's the 3rd Finlay Donovan book, Finlay Donovan Jumps the Gun. I have no idea what this is about. I have no synopsis. Maybe I'll put a synopsis up on the screen. But I've been very excited to read that because I absolutely loved the 1st and 2nd Finlay Donovans. And so I'm sure I'm going to love the 3rd one. So I'm so excited that that worked out because it comes out in February I'm pretty sure. But if you want some other books that have verbs in the title, you could read Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I haven't read this one yet because I've only read Survive the Night and The House Across the Lake from him, but I've heard this is his best one. Like that there's this, it's basically this place about this girl that gets paid to live in this apartment. And it says, you can have no visitors, no nights spent away from the apartment, no disturbing the other residents, all of whom are rich or famous or both, but then somebody disappears and stuff gets crazy. So you could read that. You could also read Pack Up the Moon by Kristen Higgins. This is a very sad one about Josh and Lauren, the perfect couple. They're newly married, wildly in love. She gets diagnosed with a terminal illness and dies and leaves a bunch of letters behind for her husband. Talk about Cry City, y'all. Talk about it. You could also read Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. And this one is about a best-selling horror author that's invited to spend Halloween night in one of the world's most haunted houses. But there's 3 other masters of the macabre, writers who have helped shape modern horror. But what begins as a simple publicity stunt becomes a fight for survival. The entity they awakened will follow them, torment them, and threaten to make them a part of the bloody legacy of Kill Creek. So that could be a fun time. Or you could read Leave the World Behind, which this one is about Amanda and Clay. They expect to go on a vacation in Long Island, but then this older couple knocks on their door claiming to own the house and arrive there in a panic and say that a sudden blackout has swept New York and that they've come to this country in search of shelter. But with the TV and internet down and no cell phone service, the facts are unknown. Should they trust this intruding couple and vice versa? Are they safe from one another within this own house? So that one is a fun, like, isolated setting type of book. So those are all different books you could read for verbs. So in March, the word is secret, and what I chose to read is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, because I've been wanting to read this for a while, and I just got it as a present from someone for Christmas, from my friend Brittany. And so this one is about an isolated witch whose opportunity to embrace a quirky new family and a new love changes the course of her life. And I've really not heard anybody say anything bad about this book, so I cannot wait to get to that. But in case you don't want to read that book, you could also read A Secret History of Witches by Louisa Morgan. I believe this is the first book in this series. It's a historical saga that traces 5 generations of fiercely powerful mothers and daughters, witches whose magical inheritance is both a dangerous threat and an extraordinary gift. I've been wanting to read this for a while. Maybe I'll get to it in that month as well. You could also read Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier, which I definitely know I'll probably read this one too, because I'm trying to read all of Jennifer Hillier's backlist. This one is about a girl named Marin. She's married to her college sweetheart, owns a hair salon. Her husband owns his own company. They're a loving family until their son Sebastian is taken. A year later, the search has gone cold. Her husband and her rarely speak. She hires a PI to pick up where they left off. But instead of finding Sebastian, she learns Derek's having an affair with a younger woman. And she basically decides she's not going to lose her husband too, so she has to get rid of this woman, basically. I'm very excited to read this as well. Or you could also read The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Filia, which is a bunch of short stories. It's one of the first short story collections I ever read, and I absolutely loved it. It's just about a bunch of different Black women and their journeys, not only through like church and religion, but like their lives. It is a really great book, short story collection. I loved it a lot. So if you're looking for like a fun one, and the audiobook is fantastic. I recommend the audiobook. Then definitely check that book out as well. So April's theme is emotions, and so I decided to go with Sorrowland by River Solomon, because I've been wanting to read this for a hot minute. And this one says, let's see, this book takes Vern and her babies away from civilization and then back to it, but they return changed, and they change everyone else. That's all I'm really going to say about it. It says, here monsters aren't just individuals, but entire nations. This is a searing seminal book that marks the arrival of a bold, unignorable voice in American fiction. I'm very excited to hopefully get to this. Other emotions that you could read is Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult, which, and Jennifer Finley Boylan, but I only care about I only care about Jodi Picoult. This one, I'm pretty sure it's about one of their kids dying and their son being questioned by the police, and she believes their son is innocent, but he's hiding more than he shared with her. So she has to actually figure out the case. So that could be a good one. You could also read The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, which I've been wanting to read for a minute. And this one is about when Star witnesses the fatal shooting of her childhood best friend Khalil at the hands of a police officer, and he was unarmed. So then his death is the headline. Some are calling him a thug, a drug dealer, a gangbanger. And when it becomes the police have little interest in investigating the incident, protesters take to the streets and her neighborhood becomes a war zone. But what she does or does not say could destroy her community and endanger her life. So this is definitely a good one, I'm sure, to get into. Or you could also read Crying in H Mart if you want a nonfiction one by Michelle Zauner. This is by the woman that is in the band Japanese Breakfast. And it's basically just a story about like her Korean identity and how food helped shape her and everything. And I've heard that this one is very sad, and so I'm definitely excited to hopefully get to that in the future. But you can read any emotion that you want. Then we get to May, and the theme for that is flavors. And so I chose to read the book of Salt and Bones by Carrie Lake. Once again, that book is on my 23 for 2023, but I still don't own it yet. And I don't know 100% what it's about. I'm just going for it based off of my recommendation of my friend Chantel from Nell's Novels. So hopefully I love it. But I will put a picture of it up here in case you want to see what it looks like. But that's what I'm reading for flavors. Other books that you could read for that, and you can take this literally. It could be like a flavor, it could be a spice, an herb, whatever you want it to be. You could also read Of Women in Salt by Gabriela Garcia. This one is about a daughter's fateful choice, a mother motivated by her own past, and a family legacy that begins in Cuba before either of them was born. So that could be a good one. You could read Sugar Run by Mesha Marin, which I've actually been wanting to read for a long, long time. This one says, in 1989, Joni McCarty is 17 years old when she's sentenced to life in prison. When she's released 18 years later, she finds herself at a bus stop, reeling from the shock of unexpected freedom, but determined to chart a better course for herself. She can't return to her home in the Appalachian Mountains, so she heads south in search of someone she left behind as a way of making amends. She meets and falls in love with Miranda, a troubled young mother living in a motel room with her children. Together, they head towards what they hope will be a fresh start. But what do you do with your past and with a town and a family that refuses to forget or change? This one sounds really interesting. You could also read Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I hope I didn't just butcher that completely. I just got this as well. Oop. And it says, if you could go back, who would you want to meet? So basically 4 customers visit this cafe in hopes of making a time travel journey, but you can only go for as long as it takes for the coffee to get cold. So it's like short stories, kind of, essentially. I've heard it's really good, so I definitely want to get to this soon. Or you could read Yolk by Mary H.K. Choi, like egg yolk, and it's about 2 sisters, Jane and June. They're nothing alike. June is a classic firstborn narc with a vile finance job and a soulless apartment. Jane is an emotionally self-stunted, obsessed crybaby who lives in squalor, has egregious taste in men, and needs to get her ass to class. Once thick as thieves, these sisters who moved from Seoul to San Antonio and New York don't want anything to do with each other until June gets cancer and Jane becomes the only one who can help her. So it's a sister dynamic if you're interested in that. Then for June, we have the word other, and I chose to read Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren because I've been wanting to read this for a hot minute. And this one is, let's see, Mary is settling into an ambitious routine, work hard as a new pediatrics resident, plan her wedding to an older, financially secure man, keep her head down and heart tucked away. But when she runs into Elliot, the first and only love of her life, the bubble she's constructed begins to dissolve. He used to be her entire world, but he broke it on the very night he declared his love for her. Well, she broke it. And then it's told in alternating timelines between then and now, between teenage Elliot and Macy, and like what's happening now. And so how is she going to decide who she's going to be with, basically? I'm very excited to get to this. You could also read Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, which my friend gave me. And it's a fierce novel about the lives of Black British families, their struggles, pains, laughters, longings, and loves. So that could be a fun one for you. Or you could read The Other Mrs. by Mary Kubica. I haven't read this yet, but it's about Sadie and Will. They just moved their family from bustling Chicago to small town Maine when their neighbor is found dead in her home. The murder rocks their island. No one's more shaken than Sadie. As the eyes of suspicion turn towards the new family in town, she's drawn into the mystery of Morgan's death, but she must be careful, for the more she discovers about Mrs. Baines, the more she begins to realize just how much she has to lose if the truth ever actually comes to light. So that could be a fun one as well. Or you could also read The Other People by C.J. Tudor, which I read and I absolutely loved. And that one, I'm pretty sure, is about a kid that goes missing and the dad has to spend forever trying to find her. And he basically finds this online site of other people that will help find her for him or something like that. I can't remember 100%. But I had a good time with it. Then for July, we have the word weather, or not word weather, the theme weather. And so I chose to read Project Hail, like Hail Mary by Andy Weir, because I've been wanting to read this for a very long time. This one is about Ryland Grace. He's a sole survivor on a last chance mission, but he doesn't remember his own name or the assignment or how to complete it. He's been asleep for a long time, but all of his crew is dead while he's in space. And so he has to figure out how to complete this mission and not get extinct in the process. And I've heard it's hilarious. I've heard the audiobook is great, so I'm very glad that I was able to fit this into the July prompt. But you could also read for weather-themed books The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Steen. I have no idea what this one is about. It says it's about family, love, loyalty, and hope. A captivating look at the wonders and absurdities of life as only a dog could tell it. So it's told from a dog's perspective. But I've heard it's beautiful. You could also read for like seasons The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon, who I love her because I loved her book The Children on the Hill. This one says West Hall, Vermont has been a town of strange disappearances and old legends. The most mysterious is that of Sarah Harrison, who in 1908 was found dead in the field behind her house just months after the tragic death of her daughter. Now in the present day, 19-year-old Ruthie lives in her Sarah's farmhouse with her mother, Alice, and her younger sister, Fawn. Alice has insisted that they live off the grid, but then Ruthie wakes up one morning to find Alice has vanished, and in her search for clues, she finds a copy of Sarah Harrison's diary hidden beneath the floorboards, and as she gets sucked into this mystery, she discovers she's not the only person looking for someone they've lost, and she needs to stop history from repeating itself. That one sounds inviting. You could actually go with the word weather and go for Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Sonneman. This one I'm pretty sure is about a girl and a guy that like get their bosses to date each other so that they're less grumpy, but then they end up getting in a love relationship themselves, I'm pretty sure. You could also read The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. I don't know what this one is about. I know it's a powerful American epic about love and heroism and hope set during the Great Depression, a time when the country was in crisis, when millions were out of work and even the land seem to have turned against them. And I've heard this is a very heart-wrenching book. And finally, you could read Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse because it has the word sun in it. And it says it's book one of the Between Earth and Sky trilogy, inspired by the civilizations of the pre-Columbian Americans and woven into a tale of celestial prophecies, political intrigue, and forbidden magic. A god will return when the earth and sky converge under the black sun. So lots of good choices there. Then we get to August, which is a fun one where it is body parts. And so I chose to read Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough because I've been wanting to read this for forever. This is also in my 23 for 2023. So this one is about a girl named Louise. She finds out the man that she kissed in the bar on a night out is her new boss, and that the girl that she met that wants to be her new friend is his wife. They look like a picture-perfect husband, but then why is he so controlling? Why is she so scared? She starts finding out more puzzling questions. The only thing that's clear is that something in their marriage is wrong, but she can't guess how wrong or how far a person might go to protect their marriage's secrets. And I've heard the plot twist in this is definitely what makes this book so interesting, so I'm excited to get to it soon. You could also go for the word tea and bone and go for Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. A T. Kingfisher recommendation. It says, this isn't the kind of fairy tale where the princess marries a prince, it's the one where she kills him. So that could be intriguing. Or you could go for the word teeth and go for Baby Teeth by Zoji Stage, another book I'm definitely interested in getting to. This is a creepy child book that says, is love born or bred? What's the nature of good and evil? When is a family fit to survive? I love a good creepy child book. I'm just saying. Or you could also read Every Heart a Doorway, the first book in like that, I can't remember what the actual name of the children's series is, but it's by Shauna McGuire. I read it and loved it. It's about a bunch of kids that like have different powers and abilities that come from different worlds, and they go to like basically this Harry Potter-esque type school, and so each book switches between either them being at the school or following one of the kids' lives in their old worlds. And the first one was really great, so I definitely recommend that series as well. Then for September, we have game-themed words. So that could be like first, last, compete, like all these different things. So the one that I chose to read is I'm reading one for my Besties Book Club, and I'm not going to announce what that one is, but I also wanted to read this because my friend Neva recommended it to me. And that is Ace of Spades by Farida Abike-Iyamide. Could have said that completely wrong, but since it's like a deck of cards, I thought that could work. And this one says, it's about two private academy students who are selected to be part of the elite school's senior prefects. After the announcement is made, someone who goes by Aces begins sending anonymous texts to reveal secrets about the two of them that turn their lives upside down. As Ace shows no sign of stopping, what seems like a sick prank turns into a dangerous game with all the cards stacked against them. Can they stop Aces before things become incredibly deadly? I cannot wait to read this. You could also read the book Middle Game by Shauna McGuire, another Shauna McGuire book. And this one is about Roger, who is like a languages person, and Dodger, his twin, is a numbers person. They're not human. They're not gods either. Reed is the alchemical, like, creator of them, and he created them. He's not their father, not quite, but he wants to raise these twins to the highest power to ascend with them and claim their godlike authority as his own. And I've heard this one is a phenomenal read. You could also read The Lying Game by Ruth Ware. This one, let's see. You could also read The Lying Game, and I don't actually know what this one is about because this book is one of those older books that does not have a description because it is my mom's copy, so Fun guess. You could read The Last Flight by Julie Clark. I read The Lies I Tell by her this year and absolutely loved it. It says this one's about 2 women, 2 flights, and 1 last chance to disappear. Or you could read The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. It's about a girl that when she's 8 kills somebody, gets away with it, 20 years later has a daughter, and she starts getting these random messages and threatening notes about what happened 20 years prior, and she has to figure out how she can stop them without losing her child, which is the love of her life now. Definitely a good book to think about. Then for October, we have the book Word Magic. And she said she wants you to actually try to use the word magic, but you could use like witches or other stuff. But I'm sticking to magic. The one I'm reading is Tricky Magic by L.L. Campbell. It should actually arrive today, so I'm just going to put a picture of it on the screen. But it's another recommendation from my friend, and I'm very excited to get to it soon. But other ones you could read for this prompt are Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. It's based off of the movie about the girls that every time they like fall in love with someone, like because they're of the curse of their family, that person dies. And so they have to try to break that curse. You could also start reading the Darker Shade of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. I've heard this one's really great. It's about different types of London where life and magic are revered, and like there's a struggle with the magic. I'm very excited to get to this hopefully soon. You could read Magic, Lies, and Deadly Pies by Misha Pop, about a woman that creates pies to help women right the wrongs of men and basically kill them off, until one day she's starting to get threatening notes that she's going to be outed as the woman making these pies. I'm actually reading it right now, and I'm loving it. Or you could read A Far Wilder Magic by Alison Saft. I've had this on my list for a long while. It is a YA, magical, like fantasy-ish book. I believe romance as well, and it just looks super cute, so I figured I'd add it to this list. In November, we have the word good, and I am reading with my friend Brittany A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson because I've been wanting to read this for a hot minute. It's about a girl named Andy. She was murdered by her boyfriend Sal, who killed himself. 5 years later, Pip still sees how that tragedy haunts her town. She's a senior now, decides to re-examine the closed case, finds out Sal might actually be innocent, and that the person that actually killed Addie doesn't want Pip digging around for answers, so her life is in danger. What can get better than that? You could also read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This one is a tale of revenge, cultural identity, and the cost of breaking from tradition, because he always has interesting books like that. You could read A Good Marriage by Kimberly McCreight. I haven't read this by her, but I read another book and actually hated it, but I heard that this is the book that I should have read first. It explores what lies beneath the surface of friendships, families, and communities, and I'm not going to say much more than that because this video is getting long, but this one looks like it could be a good time. You could also read All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers, a newer release. This one is about a girl named January Jacobs. She was discovered in a ditch, dead. Margot Davies was 6 at the time. They were next door neighbors. 20 years later, Margot has grown up and moved away, but she's never really gotten over it. The killer's never been brought to justice. When she returns home to help her uncle after he's diagnosed with dementia, she feels like she's walked into a time capsule. Somebody else goes missing. It starts to repeat all over again, and she's got to solve this mystery. And my last recommendation is For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing, which I read last year and loved it. It's about a professor that I believe helps secretly kill people off that he believes should die, and it's told from that male professor's perspective. It's a fabulous read. And then the last one for December is sound-related words, and so I chose to read Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune because I've been wanting to read this book for a long time. It's about a reaper that comes to collect Wallace from his own funeral. Wallace thinks he's dead. When Hugo, the owner of a tea shop, promises to help him cross over, he decides he's definitely dead. But even in death, he's not ready to abandon the life he barely lived, so when he's given 1 week to cross over, he sets about living a lifetime in 7 days. Sounds really great. You could also go for sound-related words with the word song and read The Song of Achilles, which is about Achilles, the best of the Greeks, son of the cruel sea goddess Thetis and the legendary king Peleus. Strong, swift, and beautiful, Patroclus is an awkward young prince exiled from his homeland after an act of shocking violence, and they're brought together by chance and forge a bond despite risking the god's wrath. And a lot of stuff happens to them. I'm pretty sure it's a romance. We'll see. Or you could read The Whisper Man by Alex North. Pretty sure it's about a serial killer. The Whisper Man lures his victims out by night, and he starts trying to lure his son out by night. You could also read Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark because of Shout. I love that book. It is a Ku Klux Klan like horror fantasy book. Loved it. Definitely recommend. Or you could read Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. That is a book that I've had on my list for forever, so I figured I'd recommend it here. I definitely want to read it one day in the future. So those are all of the book recommendations that I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed them and that you were able to find some really good books. Honestly, I'm excited for all of the books that I'm reading. Like I said, I will link to Kayla's video underneath here in case you want to do this buzzword challenge for yourself and keep track of it throughout the year. You don't have to read these in the specific month that they are mentioned. You just have to read one of each of them by the time the year ends. So you could knock them all out in 1 month, whatever you want to do. The limits are endless. So with that, I'm going to let you go for day 5. Tomorrow, we will see you when we are talking all about all of the books that I have given 5 stars to over this year, so you can see what I've really loved. And there you go. All right, I'll see you in day 6. Bye.